Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they still spend their time growing different kinds of plants. They grow plants from roots, stems, joints, cuttings, and seeds. A monk completely stops harming or destroying these plants and seeds. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they store food for the next day and use it later. They also store drinks for the next day and use them later. They keep extra robes that they have not worn yet, vehicles, beds, perfumes, and things like sesame and rice, and use them later. A monk completely avoids storing things and using them later. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they spend their time watching dancing, singing, playing drums, watching shows and performances, listening to useless stories, clapping hands together, watching magic tricks that bring back the dead, playing square drums, looking at beautiful, colorful pictures, watching acrobat performances, watching bamboo pole tricks, watching bone washing ceremonies, watching elephant fights, horse fights, buffalo fights, cow fights, goat fights, ram fights, chicken fights, quail fights, stick fights, boxing matches, wrestling matches, war games, and watching parades of elephants and horses. A monk completely avoids watching all these kinds of entertainment and shows. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they spend their time playing games. They play board games with 8 or 10 squares. They play games in the air like hopscotch. They draw patterns on the ground and jump around playing. They play games by hitting pieces without letting them fall. They play dice games. They play hand-slapping games. They draw pictures of elephants and horses on walls with their fingers. They play ball games. They blow toy pipes. They play with toy plows. They do somersaults. They play with toy windmills. They play with toy measuring scales made of leaves. They play with toy carts. They play with toy bows. They trace letters in the air or on their backs and guess them. They play mind-reading games. And they play games that show people's faults. A monk completely avoids all these games and time-wasting activities. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they use high and fancy beds and seats. They use long beds, short beds, beds with 4 legs, beds decorated with fancy designs, beds with white decorations, beds with flowers pointing forward made of ivory, beds with lion designs made of fancy ivory, beds with one side raised, beds with both sides raised made of ivory, beds with silk ribbons, large beds where 16 dancing girls can dance at the same time, made of ivory, beds with elephant designs on the sides, beds with horse designs on the sides, beds with chariot designs on the sides, beds made with animal skin, beds made with banana flower designs, and seats with red cushions on both sides. A monk completely avoids using all these high and fancy beds and seats. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they spend their time decorating and fixing their bodies. They rub their bodies with oils, massage themselves, take fancy baths, and use mirrors. They use eye makeup, perfumes, scented powders, and creams for the face. They wear jewelry on their arms, tie their hair with gold threads, and carry fancy walking sticks. They carry medicine tubes, swords, and decorated umbrellas. They wear fancy sandals or shoes, wear headbands and hair jewels, use fans, and wear long white clothes with fringes. A monk completely avoids all these ways of decorating and beautifying the body. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they spend their time talking about low and useless things. They talk about kings, thieves, and great ministers. They talk about armies, things that cause fear, and wars. They talk about food, drinks, clothes, and beds. They talk about flower garlands and perfumes. They talk about relatives, vehicles, villages, small towns, cities, and countries. They talk about women, men, girls, and boys. They talk about soldiers and streets. They talk about servants carrying water or the places where they get water. They talk about relatives who have died and many other stories that have no meaning. They talk about how the world was made, stories about the sea, and talk about being born again and again. A monk completely avoids all these kinds of low talk. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they spend their time arguing and blaming others. They say things like, "You do not understand this teaching. I understand this teaching." They say, "You do not know this teaching well. What do you know about it? You are doing it wrong, but I am doing it right." They say, "My words are good and have meaning. Your words have no meaning." They say things in the wrong order and then correct themselves. They say things that should be said later first, and things that should be said first later. They say, "Even though you have practiced this for a long time, it is all useless. You have been argued with. You have been blamed. Try to free yourself from this argument. If you can, then free yourself from this argument." A monk completely avoids all these kinds of blaming and arguing talk. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they spend their time carrying messages for others. They carry messages for kings, great ministers, royal people, priests, householders, and young princes. They say, "Go from here to that place," or "Come here from that place." They say, "Take this thing," or "Bring that thing from there." They act like messengers and carry news for these people. A monk completely avoids being a messenger and carrying messages for others. This is also one of his moral rules. Some religious teachers and priests eat food given to them in faith, but they act in dishonest ways. They trick people, talk to get robes and other things, use signs and predictions to impress others, talk about gaining things and respect, speak to get benefits from others, and use one gain to get another gain. A monk completely avoids all these kinds of dishonest tricks and cheating. This is also one of his moral rules.